Before we start this video, it's important to keep in mind what's going on within Activision Blizzard regarding ongoing allegations about the work culture. The ongoing lawsuit from the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing against the company is over reported toxic workplace culture. The bulk of this suit focuses on violations of the state's civil rights and equal pay laws, specifically regarding the treatment of women and other marginalized groups. To learn more about the proceedings thus far, including details listed in the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, please check out the link in the description below.
Hello, welcome to a very special installment of New Gameplay Today. I'm your host, Wesley, and today I'm joined by the game director of Diablo Immortal, Wyatt Chang.
Hey Wes, thanks for taking some time and sitting down to chat with us today.
Absolutely, super excited to chat. And we are also joined by the GM and head of Diablo franchise, Rod Ferguson. How are you?
I'm good, Wes. Thanks. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, so I think the exciting news, we can just get that right out of the way. Diablo Immortal has an official release date.
Yes, it does, and we're excited. We are announcing today that Diablo Immortal will be available on June 2nd in most regions around the world and will be available on iOS, Android. And today we're also announcing we're bringing it through open beta on PC. So you can play it on your mobile device or you can play it on your PC as well. I mean, one of the things we want to make clear about the open beta for PC is that it's really, you have to think about it almost like it's a open beta for the client. You know, this is a connected game, cross progression, cross play. So all the progression you're doing, the way that you play, it's the same game. It's just the way that you experience it at the touch part is slightly different. So that notion that everything you play on PC or on mobile, it'll be kept. You're not going to lose any progress, anything you do to improve your characters or anything you've earned along the way, all that stuff will be kept because it's really just the experience on your PC that is sort of in open beta. It's not all the servers are the same as the mobile version. The mobile version is not in beta. So it's basically the same game with just a slightly different experience on PC as we continue to get feedback on that experience. And because that's one of the big things, you know, we talk a lot around Blizzard Polish, and Blizzard Polish for us is really about how you interact with the players in the community. Diablo has a sort of saying that, and other Blizzard games as well, around what they call soup tasting, which is getting the public to play your game and give you feedback on it and to know whether you have enough salt or if you need, you know, more stock, if you will. And so one of the things, because we made the decision to support PC so late in our development cycle, basically coming off of our beta with mobile, we really haven't had that same soup tasting period with the players that we've had on the mobile game that we've been testing for years now. So that's the reason we're using open beta. It's really just about wanting to set expectations with players that this is a mobile first experience. It hasn't had the same sort of exposure to the public that the mobile game has had, but everything you do is going to be retained, and there's no sort of anything at risk by playing on the PC. It's really just an opportunity for the players to give us feedback about how we could improve that experience.
Yeah, and so with this being an open beta, it's my understanding that this is still the full Diablo Immortal experience, right?
It is. When you play the game, it is essentially the entire built for mobile game, but played on your PC. We got a ton of feedback during closed beta that people wanted to see a PC version. We also looked at, you know, the way that people were interacting with the game. We saw a lot of people playing for, you know, 2, 3, 4 hours at a time and trying to like find ways to mirror their phone screen onto their PC. We saw conversations about people talking about emulating the game when it came out because they wanted to play on PC. And we're like, gosh, if people are going to go through this trouble to emulate our game on PC, let's just make a native PC client for this mobile first game. Let's put it in the Battle.net launcher to make installation easy and let people play the game that way.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you know, with Diablo Immortal, I think, you know, in 2018 with the announcement, there was some pushback. People did want a PC version right off the bat. And at that time, it was just a mobile game. So what was the thinking with, you know, bringing this over to PC? This is still the made for mobile experience. It's just going to be playable on PC, right?
That's right. It is made for mobile. It's always been our goal. Like the Diablo franchise goes back for decades, and it's been primarily historically a PC game, but we want to reach more people, and we know that mobile gaming is super popular. And our goal has always been to reach as many players as possible. Well, in the last couple of years, looking at our beta tests, we kind of reflected and thought, if our goal is truly to reach as many players as possible, then we should be on PC as well. And that's why we're doing it.
That's super exciting. Tell me about, the experience on PC versus mobile, and is it different? Is it the same? Is there a benefit to one or the other? What can players expect when playing one version or the other?
I think to be just really clear, like one of the things we like to talk about with mobile, being mobile first, being built for mobile, is that it is a mobile experience, and that we're bringing that mobile experience to PC. And so it's going to be very similar. The way that it feels, how you play on your mobile device versus how you play on the PC will feel very, very similar. And so so similar, in fact, like you can basically, I can be on my PC, I have to go out, I log off, I log back in on my phone, and I'm playing where I was, and I can continue the dungeon I was doing or continue the quest I was on. And so that having that ability to sort of go between the two platforms is really exciting. But it is a mobile experience, though. Like one of the things I talk about is that just way that a PC player will feel it really quickly is the UI. It's a mobile UI, and so you have a list of your inventory, and I was like, oh, there's no scroll bar. On PC you're used to a scroll bar, but in mobile, no. And it's just that sort of idea that people should expect that, and that's part of the feedback we wanted to get on PC, is that it was built for mobile and it plays like mobile. This is a convenience to be able to do cross-play and cross-progression on PC, and it's still in its heart a mobile game, and it's going to feel that way when you play it on PC as well.
And so with it now coming to PC and it's also coming to mobile devices, there's a ton of different ways to play it. Obviously on a phone, there's the touch screen support, there's controller support, there's mouse and keyboard support on PC, and then WASD support as well. What was the thinking behind having so many different ways to play the game? Was it just the fact that players were asking for these different ways?
When we look at what makes Diablo, we've seen a lot of success with Diablo on PC. Diablo 3 was on console as well, and we brought it also to Switch, and that was received super well. And then with Rod could probably speak to the experiences with D2R. Also, by the way, worth noting, if you poke Rod, he'll actually tell you that he prefers Diablo on console, I think.
Whoa.
I have to poke very hard. I mean, I always said like Diablo 3 to me, when it got moved over to console, the controller feel of it was so smooth in terms of how you play that it just felt really natural. And so I actually prefer to play Diablo 3 on console. But it was really interesting as we did D2R. I was like, traditionally Diablo has been a sort of, you're the benevolent god over top of your little character and you're clicking where to go and what to do. And when you go to controller, much like when you go to Diablo Immortal on mobile, it's a direct input. You're actively controlling, you're steering, you become the character. You're not sort of this overlord, steering them. And so that was something that was one of the really interesting things early on, was that one of the things about not coming to PC was because it was a direct control. But as we looked at, as Wyatt said, the feedback from the beta and the feedback from content creators and the feedback from the community was really around wanting to play on PC. We're like, can we give that sort of traditional PC experience as well, which we can with mouse click to move. And then on top of that, we've seen other games do also the WASD system as well to move. And so that was something we wanted to implement. So now you have that direct control with like a controller, but you also have that and direct control through WASD, or you can do the click to move with the mouse.
Gotcha. And Rod, for you, as the head of this franchise, what's it like knowing that you're a few months away from the first Diablo MMO releasing? And what were some of the challenges of developing an MMO in that regard?
Well, I mean, as the GM of the franchise, is just really exciting. There's a lot going on within the Diablo franchise right now. We have D2R just shipped in September, and then D3 just launched season 26, and now we're about 6 weeks away from launching Immortal, which is to have a mobile expression of Diablo is really what it was about. Is why Immortal exists, to be able to do, as I talked about, is letting new players play Diablo. Diablo's been around for 25 years, and mobile is a great way to expand that reach and give a new accessible way to play it on mobile. So that to expand the franchise in that way is really exciting.
Yeah, and Wyatt, for you, developing this completely new experience for the franchise. What was that like? There's all kinds of new features. You've got warbands, PvP, that's a big thing, all kinds of systems that go with that, raids and whatnot. I imagine that's a pretty daunting task to add all these things to this storied franchise.
It is a huge opportunity. I think that really a common thread through all of this is social. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is our most ambitious Diablo game to date. The systems that you mentioned, like PvP and warbands and the MMO nature of the game, it makes the game feel bigger. Sometimes I wonder what makes an MMO, right? And this is sort of like a definition that people sometimes debate. And for me, it's really this idea is the game and the game world bigger than just the person who's playing it? If you play a lot of single player games, there's this idea like, oh, well, the game is on my computer and I'm entering a private world. But when you're playing an MMO, there's this feeling when you log off, the world exists without you. Like there's a big world out there. If you're playing a game like World of Warcraft, like you don't think that you log out of WoW and Orgrimmar ceases to exist, right? And so that's kind of how Sanctuary now feels. That's what Westmarch feels like. You don't have to be there for the world to be there. And now you get to participate, and we have all these social features that we mentioned. We knew that social is an important part. So the warbands are 8-player groups. We have 8-player raids for your warband to participate together. So that means that 8 of you are working together to take down a difficult raid boss. We've got plans to introduce new 8-player raid bosses on a regular, schedule after launch. We also have, as you mentioned, PvP. And so we have a battleground that is also designed for 8v8. And so that's going to be really exciting. And we have big social systems. So if people want to play just with a group of 4 to do a dungeon, you can do that. Or you can take part in big clan v clan systems that, kind of take clans of 100 people and kind of allow them to challenge one another to try and be the dominant clan on the server.
That's what I really love. That's one of the things I really love about Immortal is that it's really about the freedom of choice about how you want to play. That you're a solo player, you can play solo. You want to be in a small party with your friends doing a dungeon of 4 players, you can do that. Go into a warband to do a raid of 8 players, you can do that. Get into a clan, have clan v clan competitions, you could do that. So it's really about how you want to play and who you want to play with. And so if you want to play alone, you can. You want to play part of the clan, you can.
Yeah, and so that kind of goes into one of the points I wanted to talk about. Anyone that's been reading the developer updates and whatnot knows that one of the challenges with having so much social play in Diablo Immortal is, if I play 50 hours a week and my friend plays 10, but then on Friday night we want to group up and do this together. How do you stop me from being so over leveled that it's not fun for them, and vice versa? What's that development been like so far?
Yeah, so during closed beta, we introduced a new system called the World Paragon system. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a primer, what happens is once you hit max level, much like Diablo 3, you no longer earn character levels, you begin to earn Paragon levels, which is sort of our end game progression system. And we wanted to try and give reasons for people, to try and find ways for someone, like you said, who plays 50 hours versus somebody else who plays 10 hours a week, 50 hours a week versus 10 hours a week. And the way the World Paragon system works is there's a notion of a server-wide World Paragon, and it starts at 0, but it goes up by 2 every day. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And so after, say, 15 days, the World Paragon level will be 30. As long as you're below the World Paragon level, you're going to get a big boost to your experience rate gain. You'll still always be a little bit behind someone who's playing a lot, because it's really just a bonus, and the bonus gets smaller the closer you get to the World Paragon. But it is a really nice way for people who just don't have that same time commitment to be able to catch up and stay relatively close to their friends who are putting a lot more time into the game. Now, for those who want to put a lot of time in the game and are playing, 40, 50 hours a week, they'll benefit because they'll start to hit that world Paragon level, but they're still getting lots of item drops. So they can still go out to the dungeons, they can collect more legendary gear, they can collect more set items and complete their sets. And so they might have better items, but at least the Paragon level of you and your friends will be a little bit closer.
And Wyatt, that's a little bit like a rest mechanic. Other games have it where if you haven't played for a while, you're rested, you get a rested bonus, if you will. And that's kind of what World Paragon is for us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a World Paragon that it's a rest system that realistically doesn't even have a cap, right? Like if you you go on a 2-week vacation, you come back, you now have 2 weeks of World Paragon that you can catch up on.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so, from alpha to betas and whatnot, it's clear that this has been a big focus on, getting that right for players and whatnot. And I get the sense that Diablo Immortal is not going to be released and then you guys kind of wipe your hands clean of it. Like it sounds like it's very much, you're going to be paying attention to what the community is saying, what players are asking for, what they want changed.
So it's a living game. I think that's the thing one of the things that's really exciting about going into the mobile space. And you see that with games as a service and other things as well. But, I've been doing this long enough. I remember the box product, fire and forget kind of shipping where you're just, okay, it's launched, now go on vacation. And now it's really about, there's a demand from the players who just want more content, more things to do, keep it exciting, keep it relevant. And so that's something that we're really excited about. We have storylines that go on for a long time, and we have lots of great opportunities and things that we want to know in terms of new dungeons, new zones, even new classes, and all those things will come to the game for free, just like the game itself. So yeah, we're all in on Immortal, and we're going to be for a long time.
Awesome. And so you kind of touched on it with classes. So it's launching with Barbarian, Crusader, Demon Hunter, Monk, Necromancer, and Wizard. And you just mentioned new classes. So it sounds like, players can be expecting new classes and obviously new raid bosses and stuff like that down the line.
Yeah, we do have plans to continue adding that. We'll have new classes, as you mentioned, new raid bosses, new zones, new storylines, new dungeons, new legendary items to find. Definitely, we want to be able to continue growing the game over time.
Gotcha. And so with Diablo Immortal, Blizzard has referred to it as this, and I think fans have picked up on it a lot too. It's probably the most customizable Diablo experience. What is that like? Is that challenging? Is that exciting? Is it a mix of both?
I think customization has always been sort of kind of a pillar of Diablo games, whether it's customization of your character's play style or how you experience the game. And so I think just as we, continue to, think about how we can make the game feel bigger and provide more options for players, then yeah, like we're looking at not just gear, but also like the Paragon system allows you to customize how your Paragon points customize towards your play style or the activities that you're doing. And there was sort of, I do want to mention that one of the challenges that we ran into is that we want Diablo Immortal to just be very rich on progression systems. We know that players love having a goal to chase. We know that players love being able to constantly level up their character or find better items. And this kind of presented a little bit of a challenge because some people also like playing lots of different classes. And so it's a little bit challenging if you have to pick between, spending all of your time on, say, your Barbarian or being able to sample multiple classes. And so one of the features that won't be available on day one, but should be shortly after launch, is a class change feature. And we posted some details about this in the blog, but we want you to be able to say, hey, maybe the Barbarian, I thought this was for me, but I really want to be a Demon Hunter instead. And so there will be the ability to say, hey, I'm going to change my class over to be a Demon Hunter, and all of your progression and the quality and the rank of your items and your Paragon will carry over to now be a Demon Hunter. Now, I want to set some expectations that we don't want to be a game where you're like picking a different class for every activity. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to go in PvP with this class, and then I'm going to go do a rift with the demon hunter, and then I'm going to do a dungeon with the wizard. Like, that's not the kind of game we want. We still want you to be somewhat invested in one class. And so there will be probably like a cooldown on how often you'll be able to switch classes when the feature comes out.
One of the things I love too is like with all that customization and the way that you can sort of create your own, as you develop your skills and your looks and stuff, is like the approachability of a mobile game. Because I think you can have an MMO, an MMO ARPG that is super deep and super complex, and it's hard to understand how to do all the things, hard to understand how to use all the skills and those sorts of things. But because it was designed as a mobile first game, that ability to sort of onboard you into the experience and start with that one skill and the one button and kind of grow over time, where you're adding skills and making choices and watching that sort of split and making richer and richer choices the deeper you get into it. It brings you into the experience smoothly, as opposed to sort of just dumping you there and saying, here's all this stuff, now figure it out.
Gotcha. So I wanted to talk a bit about the story of Diablo Immortal, and it falls specifically in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. How did the team arrive at that time period for where to set Diablo Immortal?
I think a lot of it had to do with the opportunity. At the time we knew that Diablo 2 resurrected. So at the time we announced in 2018, this wasn't all public, but we knew that we're making Diablo 2 resurrected and we're making Diablo 4. And so it kind of created a really nice through line where we're like, hey, now you have your chance to play Diablo 2 Resurrected and kind of see like that ending where Tyrael shatters a corrupted world stone, and that the world stone had been corrupted by Baal, but we also know that at the beginning of Diablo 3, Diablo 3 opens with this meteor comet falling from the sky, which you learn later was actually Tyrael. But there's kind of this question mark of like what happened in between. And so for us, it's kind of like, okay, let's expand on that 20-year period in between, create that through line for people, and really bring a lot of, with mobile, we're able to bring a lot more people into the Diablo family, and it kind of really nicely sets up Diablo 4.
It also has some great fan service, because what that means by having a game before Diablo 3 is, spoiler alert, Deckard dies in 3, and Deckard Cain is kind of known as one of the most identifiable characters in the Diablo franchise with the Stay a While and Listen. And so it, as a person who's been playing Diablo for a long time, that moment when you roll into town and Deckard's there and you hear his voice and he's talking to you and you have to go on this quest for him, there was this sort of nostalgic, warming feeling about like, even though this is a new experience, a new game in a new world, that there's some touchstones there to the past that as a former Diablo player is just exciting.
Yeah. So before we go today, I'm not here to ask about Diablo 4. This is about Diablo Immortal. But in developing Diablo Immortal, it's a new Diablo experience. What's the thinking with, if fans fall in love with something in Immortal, how do you go about, hey, maybe that's for this game only, not necessarily for 4, or, oh yeah, that's great. We love that you guys love that, and maybe we're thinking about putting it in 4. Like, what's it like developing these two, not side by side, but at the same time, and knowing that fans might love this or not like this in one and love this in the other? What's the crossover there, if any?
It's just something you have to be aware about. I mean, you're always taking community feedback. It's one of the most important things. And so hearing what people love is great, and it does help inform decisions, but you also want to allow a play space for each of the different games. And you're not trying to like homogenize it down into one experience. You're trying to be like, D2R is very different from Immortal, which is very different from D3, which is very different from D4. And so like one of the great things about having all these experiences is that they all have their sort of unique flavor and a different way to play. But sure, there are things that people go, oh, I love that, or I hated that you definitely have to make sure you're not making a mistake as you continue to build new experiences. But we do like the fact that D2R, when we brought D2R back, we didn't try to make it D3, in terms of like the way that D3 worked. And so we're always looking out for that, but it's just about them each finding their own place and their own way. Mm-hmm. And they each have a different role within the franchise. And so we're just excited for people to be able to play all of them.
The team's been very clear with it's a free to play game. It does have monetization in it, but I think that at least since 2020 is when you put out that blog post about it.
Yeah.
It's been pretty open and clear how that's going to work.
There are cosmetics. There are the crests. You also have some reforged stones that can be used to modify the properties on an item. You can also earn those through regular gameplay. Some of the results that we got from the most recent beta is people responded really well to the battle pass, and I personally think battle passes are super fun in games. We really put a lot of thought into making sure that the battle pass really felt like it was adding value and making your game experience more fun and more engaging. And I think when battle passes are done right, that's exactly how they come across. I love it when battle passes have quests associated with it, so that they're actually saying, hey, go and clear this dungeon and earn more battle pass points. And you go and do it, and you get some extra XP and some rewards. And if you purchase the empowered battle pass track, then you get even more rewards, and that feels really good. And we had a lot of players say, yeah, this was a positive way to enhance my gameplay experience.
And Wyatt, that feeds into your pillars, right? Like you basically had 3 key pillars around monetization, and one of them being around gameplay first, or the fact that it feels like it's driving engagement, right? And so that notion of, oh, I get a crest, but that crest is unlocking gameplay. Like I'm going into a rift and it's altering, and I have to still play the game. I'm not buying my way to a thing. I'm finding a way to engage with the game, in a slightly different way.
We have 3 core pillars when it comes to our monetization, like Rod alluded to. The first is gameplay first. I mean, second, make sure it's worthwhile. And third, make it a bonus. And I think the Battle Pass checks all of those boxes. You're not getting anything unless you're also playing the game, but it's making your gameplay, we're giving you a bonus for playing the game more. And all the players, we had surveys afterwards, and players were like, oh, this was totally worthwhile. This was a good purchase to make.
All right, and that wraps up our time with Diablo Immortal today. Thank you so much, Wyatt and Rod, for talking with me about this game. And just a reminder, June 2nd, you can play this on iOS and Android devices and on PC as well. It will be open beta on PC. Thank you both.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
I just want to say, we're really excited for June 2nd. So hopefully everybody gets a chance to try Diablo, whether you prefer to play on mobile, prefer to play on PC, or you like to dabble in both. Come on and join us in Sanctuary on June 2nd.